Have you ever wondered why sometimes the woman you're with doesn't initiate intimacy, even though you know she loves you deeply? Maybe you've asked yourself, is she not attracted to me anymore? Did something change between us? What if I told you that her desire is there, but it simply works in a completely different way than you've been taught to expect? Today, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood topics in relationships: responsive libido. And by the end of this video, you'll not only understand what it is, but you'll also learn how to create the conditions where intimacy naturally flourishes, without pressure, without rejection, and without second-guessing yourself. Most of us grew up with one very simple picture of desire. We imagine that when you're attracted to someone, you feel arousal spontaneously. It's like a spark. You see your partner, you think about them, and boom, you want them. This is what's called spontaneous desire. It's common in movies, in TV shows, and honestly, it's what many men experience naturally. But here's the part nobody talks about. Not everyone experiences desire this way. In fact, research shows that a significant number of women experience what's known as responsive desire. And if you don't know about it, you could easily misinterpret it as rejection, disinterest, or even loss of love. So what does responsive libido actually mean? Simply put, it means that desire doesn't always appear out of thin air. Instead, it responds to the right context. For many women, intimacy starts not with a sudden urge, but with closeness, affection, or an environment that makes them feel emotionally safe and connected. Only after that connection is activated does desire truly kick in. Think of it as a seed that needs warmth and light before it begins to grow. It's not absent. It just needs the right conditions to come alive. Here's where it gets fascinating. If you don't understand responsive libido, you might feel rejected when your partner doesn't initiate sex as often as you do. You might assume she's not into you, or that something is wrong with the relationship. But in reality, it's not about a lack of attraction. It's about her body and brain operating in a slightly different pattern. Instead of being fueled by the spark alone, her desire is fueled by the fire you build together. And once you know how to recognize and nurture this, everything changes. Let's break down the science for a moment. Human sexual response involves two main systems: the accelerator and the brake. The accelerator is what turns you on, while the brake is what shuts desire down. Stress, fatigue, body image issues, or unresolved conflict can all hit that brake hard. On the other hand, touch, affection, playfulness, novelty, and feeling emotionally connected can release the brake and press the accelerator. For someone with responsive libido, this accelerator is less about sudden sexual thoughts and more about experiencing intimacy in the moment. In other words, the desire follows arousal. It doesn't always lead it. Now, why does this matter so much? Because many couples fall into a dangerous trap. One partner, usually the man, expects spontaneous desire as proof of attraction. When he doesn't see it, he feels unwanted. The woman, in turn, may feel guilty for not meeting his expectations. She might even start to believe something is wrong with her. This creates a spiral of misunderstanding, where both people feel disconnected. But the truth is, nothing is broken. It's simply two different patterns of desire that need to be understood and respected. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're sitting on the couch together after a long day. You lean in for a kiss, but she doesn't seem particularly interested at first. You could take that as rejection, or you could recognize that her body might just need a little more time to warm up. Instead of pulling away and feeling hurt, You could lean into connection, hold her hand, cuddle closer, talk, laugh. Give her body and mind the signals that she is safe, desired, and cherished. Often, what seems like no at first can evolve into a genuine and enthusiastic yes once responsive desire is awakened. This brings us to one of the most powerful shifts in perspective. Responsive libido doesn't mean less passion. It just means passion is unlocked differently. It's not about lowering your expectations or settling. It's about recognizing that intimacy can start from a place of closeness, rather than from a bolt of lightning. And the truth is, once her desire is activated, it can be just as intense, playful, and satisfying as spontaneous desire. In fact, some women with responsive libido describe it as even deeper because it's rooted in connection rather than just impulse. But let's be clear. This doesn't mean a woman with responsive libido doesn't ever initiate sex or feel spontaneous desire. Of course she can. It's just less frequent, and usually it emerges in situations where she already feels connected and relaxed. So, instead of waiting for her to suddenly want it, focus on creating those contexts where desire naturally blooms. Think about small acts of affection during the day. Sending her a message that makes her smile, giving her a hug without expecting anything in return, helping with something that eases her stress. These seemingly small actions actually prime her accelerator and release her brakes. Here's another fascinating layer. Studies show that women's desire is far more context-sensitive than men's. What does that mean? It means that the same woman can feel very different levels of desire depending on her environment, her emotional state, and the quality of the connection with her partner. So if she doesn't respond in one moment, it doesn't mean she doesn't desire you at all. It means the context isn't right yet. And the beauty of this knowledge is that you can learn how to create the right context consistently. You can turn confusion and frustration into clarity and confidence. Now, let's address one of the biggest myths head-on. The myth that desire should always come first, before intimacy. This belief makes many couples feel broken when in reality they're perfectly normal. For women with responsive libido, arousal often comes before desire. That means once her body begins to respond to touch or closeness, her mind follows. She doesn't need to feel in the mood first. Being close to you puts her in the mood. When you understand this, you stop waiting for some magical sign of readiness and instead focus on building moments of connection that naturally awaken desire. And here's where the curiosity loop comes in. Because this understanding doesn't just improve your sex life, it transforms the entire relationship. When a woman feels that her way of experiencing desire is understood and valued, she no longer feels pressure to perform. She feels accepted. And acceptance is one of the most powerful aphrodisiacs there is. Think about it. How likely are you to feel playful and adventurous if you're worried about disappointing your partner? Not very. But if you feel safe and celebrated, suddenly the bedroom becomes a space of freedom, not obligation. So how can you put this into practice? Let's get concrete. First, shift your mindset. Stop measuring desire by who initiates more often. That's not the only indicator of attraction. Second, learn to recognize her signals. Sometimes she may not verbalize desire, but she shows it through touch, lingering closeness, or simply being more open to connection. Third, focus on foreplay, not just physical, but emotional foreplay throughout the day. That could mean affectionate texts, gentle compliments, acts of service, or shared laughter. And fourth, communicate openly. Talk about how you each experience desire. Remove the shame. When both partners can openly say, "I tend to feel desire this way," it replaces frustration with teamwork. You might be wondering, does this mean men and women are simply wired differently? Not exactly. Both men and women can have spontaneous or responsive desire. It's not strictly divided by gender. But statistically, women are more likely to lean responsive. And here's the twist. Even within the same person, desire can shift. A woman might feel spontaneous desire during the honeymoon phase of a relationship, but later, as life gets busier and stress increases, she might experience more responsive desire. That doesn't mean love or attraction has faded. It just means her context has changed. And that's completely normal. Let's tie this all together with a bigger truth. Relationships thrive not when both partners are identical, but when they understand and honor their differences. Responsive libido is not a flaw. It's not a problem to fix. It's simply a different doorway into intimacy. And when you know how to open that door, you stop chasing the illusion of constant spontaneity and start enjoying the real, rich, and deeply satisfying connection that responsive desire brings. Before we wrap up, let's plant one final seed of curiosity. If responsive desire is about creating the right conditions, then the question becomes, how can you, as a partner, become the environment that awakens her desire? The answer is not in grand gestures or perfection. It's in consistency. It's in the way you touch her hand without expectation, the way you listen when she talks, the way you remind her that she is cherished. Over time, these small signals become the fuel that keeps her desire alive. And once you see it unfold, you'll realize she was never disinterested. She was simply waiting for the right spark to be lit. So the next time you find yourself wondering, does she even want me? Remember this. Yes, she does. She just desires you in a way that might not look like the movies, but it's every bit as real, and in many ways even more meaningful. Understanding responsive libido isn't just about sex. It's about rewriting the story of intimacy, so both of you can finally feel seen, desired, and connected in the deepest possible way.